I'm Regina Campbell. I'm your host here at the Legal Zone, brought to you by the Campbell Law Group. We want to welcome everybody back for season 3 and episode 2 of the Legal Zone. Here we're going to be talking to a CDRE expert today. We have a wonderful guest waiting for us. But just for a moment, we're going to take a step back to look at or talk a little bit about our prior speaker in case that you missed it. Our prior speaker was Samantha Reynolds, and she is basically, she was able to help provide us with advice on how to take care of or better ourselves. From a business point of view, and also for an employee's point of view, the benefits that's added to putting certain wellness programs into sort of the make it part of the company environment, making certain changes that helps employees become more comfortable, be less stressed out, not just at work, but also at home. Ms. Reynolds also had a lot to say for business owners, how to manage the stresses that come in and out of lives. She's basically a lifestyle architect. And the last series goes into a bunch of tips that she gave us that we all can even start just today. It literally just takes a flip of a switch to start thinking about things differently and living a healthier lifestyle. It's a really, really important podcast. I really highly recommend it. So if you missed it, you can go back and see it on YouTube, or you can set it on the podcast. Highly recommended. As is today, our guest today, to go ahead and talk about what he does. It's really interesting. As a family law attorney, I came across Mr. Gomez and I was like, wow, I have not heard of that. So I wanted to share his insight and his expertise with everybody today. Mr. Gomez is a certified divorce real estate expert. That's what the CDRE stands for. And today he's going to basically help us how to streamline the sale of the home during a divorce. Mr. Gomez has handled the sale of real estate property in many family law cases. He also has an expertise that can provide services to the courts and the legal community in general. With regards to, he can help provide title reports, fair market values to help other court experts or attorneys be able to use that information in court proceedings. He has real life experience. He has sold over 60 homes, grossing over $20 million in sales volume. So hats off to Mr. Gomez. That's fantastic. Also, he also formerly earned a bachelor's in international business, and he is now a top producer at his company, his brokerage company. He also manages the Kendall branch of Lifestyle International Realty, where he maneuvers and he sort of manages over 200 agents through their deals. And Mr. Gomez knows that the market is forever changing, so he's very cognizant of always trying to be ahead of the curve and help not just people selling houses and party selling houses, but also the legal community how to do so, particularly in this fast changing market. He's involved in always cutting edge techniques and is constantly a student of his own craft and improving everything. So I want to welcome Mr. Gomez today. Hi.
Thank you, Ms. Regina, for having me. It is a true pleasure to be here today, and hopefully we can have a good conversation.
I have no doubt.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so let's start off here. Talk to me about what a certified divorce real estate expert is.
Of course. Yeah. So, as you may already know, divorce real estate is a unique expertise. As the only certified divorce real estate expert in Miami, my role is bigger than just selling the real property. My job is to be a third-party neutral and to prevent and mitigate conflict, also to ensure that honest and fair dealing are happening amongst the parties. And the most important part is to sell the property for its highest value. Handling a divorce listing is way different than just selling a regular home. I bet that you've been in a case that you're opposing counsel to a lawyer that doesn't really practice family law. This might make your job so much harder, and it's the same thing in the realtor world. I mean, we have realtors that specialize in foreclosure sales, regular short sales, so just regular, happy buying a home or selling a property, buying a bigger home. But when you have a divorce listing that it's, under the jurisdiction of a court, or there are restraining orders in place, and you really, personal property has not been divided, or, pretty much both parties don't really agree on the time of day, that's where my specialized training will come in. I got my certification with Alumni Institute, and they are the most respected designation in divorce of real estate. And I went through a 6 months training, and as well, we continue our education by doing case studies of real life cases, as well as, we practice role play certain situations, high conflict situations that help us, navigate the transaction so much smoother. These are things that a regular real estate agent will not do. So that's what I bring to the table when I am handling the sale of a property in a divorce.
Okay, wonderful. Sounds like it's actually, like you said, it's a niche area. It's something very handy, and I assume also it's very helpful to parties going through divorces. It's already stressful enough. You may not have someone agreeing to fair market value, or potentially, let's fix this part of the house. Will it really add value, or sell the house further? And then you have communication issues that already go on that make it more difficult, I assume.
Definitely.
Yes, yeah. So let's start off so talk to me about what are some of the helpful hints for people looking to sell their marital residence during a divorce proceeding. Do you have any particular things that you've learned that seem to work well that can help everybody?
Yes, definitely. I do have some advice. So to answer your question, I will start by saying my first advice is when two parties are getting divorced, and they are getting ready to sell the property, and the only option is to get the property sold to be able to pay for the divorce or pay for the attorneys. And we all know that divorce can get very costly. I recommend, first of all, dividing the personal property. It can get very difficult if the property goes live on the market and personal property has not been divided. You don't want to get into a contract or accept an offer, and you start deciding who's going to keep the couch, who's going to keep the table. If there are 4 bar stools, who's going to keep those, or is it going to be 2 for the wife, 2 for the husband? You want to know that ahead of time. You want to, run inventory, put it on paper, and go back to the attorneys and just have that clear.
Mm-hmm.
It'll help the transaction go a lot smoother. Trust me. My second advice that I would say that would help a lot when you're getting divorced is in the beginning stages of the transaction, you need to identify where the proceeds are going. Meaning that is it going to be divided 50-50, or is it going to go to an attorney's trust account? You might run into a case, and this is typical. This happens a lot, where the husband is the one that makes all the money, and the wife, the end spouse, the one living in the property, needs a place to go, but she's counting on the sale of the property to be able either to rent or to buy something else. And if the court order says that the proceeds are going to go into an attorney's trust account, the wife may not have any money to go somewhere else.
Correct.
So you might want to do something like, and this has happened to me in the past, where you do an agreement, and typically attorneys don't have any problems with this. If there's enough equity in the home, you might want to tap into that equity and say, okay, so at closing, each party will get, let's say as an example, just to put a number, $10,000 each. So that way the wife, the end spouse, has enough money to either buy a rental property or maybe put a down payment for a new home. So those are the 2 advice that I would recommend for parties that are getting divorced and they are in the process of selling a property. And I would have those conversations early on.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, as a practitioner, I'm going to go into your first point too, that it's ironic when you said that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't. There was a delay there, so I didn't realize you were still talking.
No problem.
Okay. So as a practitioner, I've had this issue also. I mean, normally I try to get everything locked up beforehand in an agreement for that reason. A couple examples, I'll tell you why I've kind of learned to do that as well. And it's ironic you say that because I have come across situations where I'm inheriting a case after the fact and it's a mess. So for instance, like even just the personal property itself has basically the bar stools, the couch, right? Some buyers come in and they go, I love the way you have this. is everything for sale? Is the furniture for sale? Is it not for sale? So to know that ahead of time, rather than have to maybe go back and now divide the property or talk to the two attorneys about whether they'll agree to give the property, as part of the sale, is always a challenge, and it should be known ahead of time. The other thing I find is, it's a little less common, but people do. Sometimes they have home stereo systems sort of inside, improvements that will stay with the house. So, built-in, stereo systems, very expensive curtains or something that's very special to them that normally you assume stays with the house, but it may not be. So it's very important to know. I mean, I had one party that the wife wanted to gut the house, like all the nice lights, and take the stereo system out and a lot of even the built-ins. And I'm like, but you're changing, that's going to devalue the house. It's going to, it's going to be a problem. One, you can't have sellers looking at it like this and then you're going to take it down because it's harder to explain to them as a practical matter. Yeah, look how beautiful it looks, but she's taking it all. Try to imagine it without it. The first thing they're going to imagine is a lower price, right? Not good. So those kinds of things do make a difference. And then, it's a big problem, like you said. Like there has to be worked out where the other party that lives there is going to move. How, do they have enough money to get a deposit somewhere? Where are the children going to go? Was this thought out ahead of time? And then sometimes parties don't trust each other either. Who's going to hold the money? I've gone a step further, and just because litigation is the way it is, and when I could see people cannot get along, I've gone a step further with putting provisions in an agreement or asking the court to put, things into an order that makes it more turnkey. They agree to sell the house for within a certain percentage of fair market value. They agree to sell within a certain percentage of what the real estate agent says is a decent price. They'll only go down a certain amount per year. We actually try to take some of the contingency things that could happen during sale and try to agree with them ahead of time so it does not spell trouble when you try to sell a house. And then the more people come, and if you have different buyers that keep having to leave because they smell trouble, no one can ever answer questions, the realtor can't give them the answer because the two parties are fighting, or it's yes and no, it starts to develop also a reputation, the house, among other realtors, like, this is the problem one, here, I assume you've got to deal with that too, right?
Oh, yes. And just to add to what you were talking earlier about personal property, by law, when you sell a home, let's say that the furniture is not included, the property needs to be turned in free and clear of personal property. Mm-hmm. So the last thing that you want is that during final walkthrough, which is typically the day before closing and the day before escrow closing, is that the buyer goes in and there's still a couch, there's still toys from the children, there's still, maybe a bed frame that was left, and because there wasn't an agreement of who was taking what from the beginning, there might just be a miscommunication. Let's say it's a restraining order. The husband doesn't want to go into the house because there's a restraining order in place, and he can't go in and take his stuff. You have to set that up. You have to organize that. So the job of a real estate agent is to make sure, because the thing is that it's not your job as the attorney to do that. If you have a real estate agent that knows what they're doing and that can solve that for you, it just makes it so much simpler and smoother. We're the ones that are in their house and doing the showings and doing the open houses. So it's the right thing to have it on paper, have everybody agree, and have everybody be on the same page.
Yeah, and I assume also you guys know this door doesn't open, or these are the special codes, or these are when you come in and out. A lot more level of detail that gets into that can also affect their ability to communicate, show houses in time, or be on the same page. So as a realtor, you really become that communication hub, and you're seeing it. If you see a problem, you can immediately raise it. Listen, last time I showed it, the back door didn't open. Well, my husband has the keys. He won't give me the keys. Yeah. It's so that becomes problematic because the seller, the buyer doesn't care. The buyer just wants to go in and look. I've had situations where the parties still live together, where the house goes to get shown, but the husband is literally closing off an entire part of the house so the wife cannot get into that part of the house. Well, you have to coordinate to make sure that wing of the house is open when you go to show it.
That is very true. I mean, you may also have a room that's locked, and maybe the husband doesn't want people to go in there because he has private stuff in there. You have to know how to navigate that. and buyers want to see all the houses, the entire house. I mean, they want to go into every single room because it's an investment. At the end of the day, they're the one buying it. So if there's a room that's closed, I need to know what's in there, and I need to know, maybe take a picture or photograph it. I mean, I don't have to show it, but as long as I have a photo of it or quick video that I can show the prospective buyer, it might help.
Yes, correct. And again, a united front is best, because when buyers can smell some tension or problems, and they realize the circumstances, you see that price dropping like crazy, which ultimately is going to affect the parties negatively as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, so there's also, so what
Definitely, yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a little delay. No, but I wanted to say you are absolutely right about. It's funny that you mentioned that. I was going to touch on that later on in this meeting, but yeah, you're absolutely right. When there's an appraisal, the appraiser needs to go inside the property and measure and see every single room, as well as an inspector. The inspectors have to check every single wall, every single air vent, every single window. They need to see this property to be able to insure it. So there's certain conversations, having the right conversations and asking the right questions early on might just help run the case so much faster.
It makes sense, and I can definitely see how that would be great. Those tips and those tactics too that you have developed, and as an expert, as a certified real estate divorce, expert, so to speak, right? So,
Right.
what is the best way families can maximize the price of the house in the sale of divorce?
Yes, so that's a very good question, Ms. Regina. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to say and answer, is that to be able to maximize value, the first thing that I do, and I do that with a regular sale and with the divorce listing, I do a walkthrough of the property in my initial intake. So I take pictures and video of the home. And while I'm doing the walkthrough and taking my pictures and videos, I will give my recommendations. Things that might help maximize the sale of a property is maximize. I mean, by maximize the value and then the sale when it comes to the net proceeds. You know, decluttering the house, painting it a different color if the color is too dark. I mean, if you have a room that is purple, I might ask you to, maybe paint it white or paint it beige. Not because I may not like the color purple, but because to a prospective buyer, we have to be as neutral as possible.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yes. So as well as, I would maybe recommend to wash the roof or to pressure clean the driveway. Maybe cut the grass before we take pictures and we take videos. Because the last thing is that, the last thing that you want is that the house is extremely, cluttered. The walls are painted a color that is not very attractive. The roof is dirty, stuff like that. I will have a conversation with the in-spouse so that way we can get it fixed, get it, prepped for pictures and videos before it hits the market. And the good thing is that I do have a list of providers ready to assist for every single listing if it need be. The second thing that I run through a lot in listings is especially divorce listings. When there are two parties that pretty much don't agree on anything, the in-spouse may not want to sell the house. One of the parties may want to keep it, okay, and they might make it very hard to allow people to see it, to allow showings, and that makes the job so much more difficult. I mean, it is a requirement anyway in my contract that 90% of all showings are accepted. And if there's any type of, inconvenience, let's say the wife works until 7, so she cannot be physically in the home to open the door for me before 7 p.m., then I need to know that. Because if the property is not shown, then the property won't sell. And one thing that in my line of business, in the real estate world, when we run comparables to evaluate a property, we have something called average days on market. What that means is that we see how long it takes for a comparable house to be sold. And we do an average. So let's say I have 30 days to get top dollar for the property. That means I have 30 days to get as many buyers inside that home. And I have 30 days to sell it for top dollar, because after 30 days, the property is going to decrease in value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a very important thing. I have a conversation. And the good thing that we have is that, aside from having an open communication and knowing if there's any restrictions when it comes to showings, we have an app called Showing Time or Showing Assist. So what that is that I can add the end spouse in that application by email, and she can approve and deny the showings. Well, let's say that 85% of all my showings are being canceled. That's when I will reach out to the attorney, and because there will be an impasse, I will reach out to the attorney and try to request help, because obviously I have a goal and I have homework to get that property sold. And if I can't show it, I can't sell it.
At that point, you might need court intervention that's ordering the person to, be available for certain timings or be required to do certain tasks, right? Because it does happen too. I've been in those circumstances where I literally have to nail down as many steps as I can to avoid going back into court every 5 minutes to say, well, now they won't let me, pull out the chair. Now they won't let me open the door. You almost have to anticipate, depending on the circumstances that you have, to front run it or get an order, requiring that person to comply. Because again, they are also making it more difficult, and it's going to signal to the market that this house has trouble. It's difficult, right? Or one of the parties doesn't want to sell, and ultimately it negatively impacts the sale of the property too, and also your ability to do your job, I assume.
No, definitely. And when I, as a CDRE, as a certified divorce real estate expert, I have emails that I can, like email templates that I can use to handle those situations. That's what I mean. In alumni, we do what is called role plays. So we will role play these kind of situations and how we're going to sit down in front of our clients to solve these problems, and how to write up an email with an attorney that can get the job done. When it comes also to fair market values and the valuation of a property, how do I explain that? How do I show when both parties have a different number? One of them wants to sell it for $500,000. The other one wants to sell it for $700,000. I need to show factual proof of comparables in the area when it comes to square footage. Well, I'll dive in a little bit more into that later. But when it comes to square footage and the condition of the home, I want to make sure that they both have the same facts to determine, so we can all agree on the value, because they both have to agree. They're both the owners.
Yeah. So have you had a situation where the court will actually set a ceiling or a floor price to sell it at? I mean, because they just can't get along, and see, it takes a while sometimes to go into court. You can't always just get a hearing every time you might need it, and you have an offer on the table that's good for 48 hours. What do you do, right? It takes longer to go into court and force someone to sell, or this is a reasonable price and the other party is just being difficult. It takes a while to move the needle with the courts to then get a resolution. Order the sale of the house, the forced sale at a certain price. Do you ever work with floors and ceilings? And obviously, I would assume the buyers and the sellers don't want that information public. But you ever had to go to that extreme in cases that are very contentious?
So I missed the very beginning of the question. I heard the end. Would you mind repeating it one more time?
Yeah, no problem at all. Have you ever had a situation where a court has had to set up a floor or a ceiling on a price because it doesn't make sense? They can't get along. If you have someone that comes in and makes an offer on a house for $1 million, and you have 48 hours to accept it, and $1 million is an amazing price, but the other party just wants to be difficult. So you keep losing deals. So you ask a court to set a minimum or a maximum which they can sell at, so that the other party that's obstructionist cannot continue to keep the house from selling, right? Have you ever had that situation where it's ordered?
Most definitely. So what I like doing is getting that floor number from both spouses, because when I do my intakes, meaning that when, let's say, I'm either appointed by the court or I am referred by one of the attorneys, I will do separate intakes with the spouses, because I don't know if they don't get along, or if if the divorce is a high conflict divorce. So when I do my numbers and when I do my fair market values, I would ask them, what is the lowest that you will take for the property? And that once I receive an offer, if I know that we're a little bit off, let's say my comparables are coming back at 500,000, but both spouses want to sell at 525. So I have, I may be a little bit worried about what that appraisal value when a buyer comes with financing. So I will get a floor. So let's say they both tell me they don't want to sell lower than 500,000. I can disclose that information in the contract, so I don't waste my time. So I would say something in the additional terms. I would say, buyer and seller agree that seller won't sell under a certain price. Obviously, the legal wording is way different. I'm just kind of dumbing it down for the purpose of this conversation. But I will put something like that, so that way the buyer mentally prepares himself and financially prepares himself. In the case that the appraisal comes in lower than 500,000, they will either have to come up with the difference, or they would have to ask a loan of some sort. But they already knew that lower than 500,000, the property is not going to sell. So, a very good question. Yes, I've had situations like that all the time.
Okay, great. So is there any other tips you can give us out here? I know this is, I know help attorneys and stuff like that. I'm sure attorneys listening. Is there any, like you kind of described a little bit how you, call them up. I'm having this difficulty. Can you help me with the other side? They get involved. Do attorneys ever use you in a different capacity? Or I know fair market value. Do they use you as a neutral, or do they just, or just the parties agree to use you, and then in which case it's sort of like you're neutral sort of by default, even though you're not appointed as a neutral, right, in the court systems?
Correct. So okay, so we spoke obviously about the fair market value, which is which I am trained to. So a regular, I'm sorry that I'm getting my words mixed here, but my special training, when I do a fair market value report, let's say it's a report that you can show in court. So let's say both parties don't really agree on the price, right? And which is a big thing in divorce. They never agree, never. Typically, the person that doesn't want to sell a house may want to sell it for, I will only sell for 800,000, but the property is worth like 400. So you typically that's how it happens. But my report, it's not a comparable market analysis like any realtor may do. No, my report is a fair market value report that I am trained to testify to. If as a neutral expert. So let's say that an appraisal can be very costly, and it may take up to a week or 2 weeks sometimes to receive on a property. Depends on the size, depending on the size of the property. So my fair market value reports are typically super quick. We're talking about that it will take between 24 to 48 hours for me to get it back to you. And once I present that report, it's a factual report based on comparables. I will explain the condition of every single property. And if I have the chance to do a walkthrough on that home, I will testify to that. I am trained to testify on that report in the case that I do get subpoenaed by the court.
Okay. Wow. Wonderful. Good to know. Also helpful for the attorneys and the family law practitioners out there to know that as well. And things that can be done, because this is an unusual area, but it happens. It's the reality is that it does happen in family law often. So fantastic. So do you have any other tips for us? Any things that we can learn from also, that, from your experience and your expertise?
Definitely. I would like to also add the way that I am. I help attorneys and I help my family law community, because I'm not only a realtor to sell the property. I'm also, I consider myself a resource to my family law attorney. And there are 3 ways that I typically help my family law community. And one of them is education. So, I always want my family law attorneys to be, superstars, to be on top of their game, to, know about not only law or the law that they practice, but to know about real estate as well. Because, I mean, let's face it, when you do family law, real property, real estate will come up at some point. Okay. So, you may have a question, or one of your clients may ask you, should I do a buyout, or should I sell the house? I mean, all those questions, unless you are, breathing and living the real estate market, you may not have the answers to those questions right away. That's where I come in. I keep you informed of the real estate market as it pertains to the family law community. And I do this in 3 ways. So number one, I will send you an email. And I do have a list where, I sit down in my computer and I prepare it, and it's, very nice. But I send you an email, and this is more, real life information. This is, real cases currently happening. And I would just share information, let's say, what we spoke about restraining orders, or fair market values, or interest rates going up and down, stuff like that you can, read and always have, at your disposal whenever you need it. The second thing I do is that I send a newsletter every quarter, and this is more broad information when it comes to real estate. And I would share, how the current market is constantly changing. And the third way that I do to educate my family law attorneys is that I am a sponsor of a COE program called Raising the Bar. And I do this the fourth Wednesday of every month. And it's typically an expert in a field. I know that last year we did the importance of evaluating a business when it comes to a divorce. That's also very important to know, and very interesting information. It's not always real estate, but we will kind of just get experts to teach about their fields. And the second way that I help, that's number one. The whole thing was education. Now, the second thing that I do is that I am a resource. I mean, I'm a phone call away. If you have a property that comes across your desk, and you need a lien search, or you need a title search, or you need to know the legal description of a property, number one, you can call me. I'm always a phone call away. Or I have developed a website that is called SoFlo Divorce Real Estate, like South Florida, and SoFloDivorceRealEstate.com. And that website is backed up by family law attorneys, by title agents, by real estate attorneys, and by lenders. So whatever you need, I can get to you within 24 to 48 hours, any information about any property. I'm guessing, and I ask you, I know you're typically the one asking the questions, but have you ever had a case that, you need information of a property, and does it take some time really long?
It can. It depends on the information that I need and how easy it is to find it. But often, not just on my family practice, but on my corporate, the civil practice side also, information about a property can become necessary, right? I mean, I can do, public searches, for recorded documents. I can try to see if there's any permits, things of that nature. But sometimes there's also just information. I want to see what else has it been listed, not been listed, where it's been at. But it still takes me a while to look, right? Because it's not something I'm doing every day.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I always say, sometimes you'll send me an email. Hey, Pablo, I need, has this property been listed? Has it been expired? Or can you send me, a lien search on this property? I want to know if there's anything affecting title or anything like that. I can get you like stuff like that in real time because we have tools. I mean, I'm a realtor. We pay our fees every single year to have those things accessible to us because it helps us get property sold faster. So that's one of the things that I do, and one of the most important things, a resource. I always want to say that it's not all about the money. It's not always about the money. It's sometimes about helping and creating that relationship and that trust. And I always say, phone call away, have me speed dial, whatever you need about a property, I'm there to help. I want to add to that as well. I know we did speak about fair market values. That's a report. Now, if you tell me, Pablo, can you give me a fair market value, a desktop fair market value? I can get that to you within hours. So you can know the value of a property, so you can, make a decision as fast as you need to make that decision. Those I typically do not testify to, just because I did not walk to the property. I don't know, if the property has
Right.
any
You didn't report, you had analysis with certain methodologies and so forth, right?
Correct. I want to make sure the property is in good condition, and I want to make sure that when I do my walkthroughs, I do take pictures and videos, so that way for my records, and it would determine and would help me to give you a more accurate value. And the last thing that I would like to talk about today, if you have any other questions, obviously you can always ask. But my listing model is completely different from any other realtor. I mean, I'm trained to handle high conflict personalities, and I am also trained to handle, let's say, restraining orders when there's a dangerous situation or a domestic violence situation. I am trained to handle those conflicts. I mean, my job is to take away the minutia of the real estate part of your cases. I do this by, being able to handle things like, you shouldn't be worried about showings or open houses, or what offer should we accept, or terms in a contract. Like, stuff like that is what I'm trained to do. And the more that I can take off your plate, that's what I'm there for. And I will always communicate with you in your cases 5 points in time. So you will not find out from your clients what's going on. You will always know what's going on in your cases, but I won't be bothering you with certain stuff, because I'm trained to handle most conflicts. As well, I abide to a completely different code of ethics. So in my world, in my real estate world, ending a deal, meaning representing buyer and seller, is completely normal and completely allowed. But I'm not interested in that in a divorce case. I keep an arm's length in every transaction, and I'm not interested in being an investor or representing the buyer, because it is my job to make sure that I am a neutral party in the transaction, and that I sell the property as fast as possible for the highest value possible, so the case can move on.
Okay, that's very important. And honestly, dealing with high conflict or difficult personalities is an art of itself. And often it's, if you have that objective person that's really not involved, they're not the other person's lawyer, they're not your lawyer, that sometimes you're happy with, but also you could be angry with the circumstances or just voicing opinions to. It's someone more objective in the middle. Hopefully that can take some of the sounding words, and they're not going to fight with usually they're not going to fight as much. There are cases, I do have cases that people have fought with the neutrals and sued the neutrals and everything, but for the most part, you're more the objective party. You're not going to get the R of the person in the same way as the ex-wife or ex-husband, or soon-to-be ex-wife, ex-husband, or their attorney. So that's usually, I imagine that's helpful, and you know how to disarm people like that and deal with them, not take it personal. So that you get it done, because that's what that is with those personalities. That's how you deal with them.
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's very simple to get involved in. When the wife may come to you and tell you stuff like, I hate him, or stuff like, he did this, he did that. It's very, very easy to give your opinion, to give your bias. It's very simple to do that, and it takes a unique expertise to be able to, detach yourself from the transaction and understand that you are there to do one job, and that one job is to get the property sold as fast as possible. And as long as you have that clear, it's not that you're not going to show empathy. You are always going to show empathy, but there's a fine line that you can't cross, because the moment that you cross that line, then you become a friend or you become a therapist instead of being the realtor, you know,
Right. And the neutral.
and the neutral,
Yeah.
which is important. You know, you don't want to run into a situation that, oh no, but your interest is not to get the property sold. It's to,
Right.
you have all the interest within the property. That's why I always say I'm a neutral party, arm's length. I understand the situation. I apologize that you're in a situation. Okay, let's move on. You know, we have this offer, blah blah blah.
Because ultimately, if your bias is also called into question, the whole process takes longer. The attack, your reportings, your findings, everything takes longer, costs longer, and it's just not getting done either. So even from a purely practical point of view, that, you do that. You know what I mean? And that's what a neutral has to. A neutral cannot take sides, and it's just there. So I guess that's part of, like you're saying, the specialized training that you have to be able to handle issues, because it's easy to get involved in them.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. We had a case study, not a case study, a role play the other day that let's say you're running through the title work with the party selling, and you found out that the husband took out a HELOC or took out a second mortgage against the house. So the wife, it's
Went ballistic.
yeah. Yeah, she's thinking that she's gonna net, let's say, 200,000 with the sale of the home, and now it's way less. Let's I'm only gonna net 50,000. I don't even have enough to pay the attorney or to buy anything. That changes the whole entire thing. I mean, how do you handle that? And also, as humans, the first thing that we do, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But
Yeah.
what happens when you say I'm sorry too many times? Then the blame starts going. It starts being channeled towards you when you have nothing to do with it. So we always say, acknowledge the situation, apologize for the situation, ask if you should continue because you have a goal. If you're having a conversation with that person, you have a goal. Ask if you should continue or you should, circle back in a couple of days. So stuff like that and how to handle that. I mean, I'll be honest. When we did that role play for the first time, I failed completely. Because being a Hispanic and being my automatic reaction is, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, and that's not the right way to do it.
Yeah, te siente mal. You feel bad. You're like, oh my goodness, is this person just the news they just got?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, so this has been really, really helpful.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Do you have any other tips for us or anything you could think of that we might be of assistance? I mean, for our audience?
No, I just want to say, Ms. Regina, thank you so much for having me here. It is an honor. It's a pleasure. I have the whole entire week. I've been so excited for this. It may not be a big deal or anything like that, but for me, it is. I mean, anytime that I can get in front of an attorney, have a good conversation, whether it goes a long way or it doesn't, it's a plus for me. So I just want to thank you. If I don't know if I should say this, but if you want to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram as the Gomez Group. That's my little handle thing. And whatever, if there's any attorneys that watch this in the future, please give me a call for whatever you need. I do lunch and learns. I sit down with your staff and kind of just do this kind of the same thing that we did here. I can do at your office. I'll provide lunch and we can have a good conversation and whatever you guys need, I'm here to help.
Good, great. Glad to have you. And it's such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for coming on to our show as well. We're very grateful. You have a unique set of expertise, and hopefully my audience is also enjoying it and learning a lot and learning about you as well. And if anyone ever needs anything and they cannot find you for any reason on the internet, call us and we'll give you Mr. Gomez's number. Siempre, thank you very, very much. It's been such a wonderful time. I'm glad you're excited too. We're always excited to have speakers. And that's how it is, right? It's nice to talk to people too. And we appreciate it very much coming onto the show.
Gracias. Es un placer.
Gracias a ti también. For all our viewers out there, we want to thank you again for joining us, and just stay tuned for our next podcast. It will be announced soon, the guests that we're going to have. And of course, if you missed any of our prior podcasts, by all means, go visit YouTube or Apple Podcasts and you can see them. We hope you also become subscribers and follow us on our social media accounts as well. And it's a pleasure, and everyone have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.